Hey everyone, this is Alexis Sarah here with another video. Today I'm going to be doing my, as you can tell from the video description, top 20 Fire Emblem hero characters I want in honor of Choose Your Legends 3, which is happening. Go over for Heather, as you can see from the image that's here. This is going to be very fancily edited, so get your expectations ready. It's going to be, just images I made on screen as I talk about the character, the build I think they would benefit from, and like what I'd like to see. And generally these builds are basically me thinking about them being a strong unit, a power creep unit, but like a reasonably power creep unit. I try to keep them with the base stats of the characters that are currently the strongest in their archetype, or to do something different. But, so if you feel like this character is ridiculously strong, it's because I designed them to be really strong. That was intentional. That was on purpose. I did that. Before we start with the proper video, I want to say why you should go vote for Heather in Fire Emblem Heroes with your last remaining votes. Heather is one of the few canon lesbian characters in the series. And because of that, it makes her one of the few canon LGBT characters, while you get hints and other characters. Really the only other characters we have like fully actually confirmed without using a gay hack or something, like Heather, then Leon, who is in the game, Rashad, who is in the game, and Niles, who is in the game. Corin could be bi if you play your Corin bi, or you could be gay if you play your Corin gay, but they implied heteronormative until they marry their characters. How again, so there's characters that can be queer, and clearly Tharja is queer and Fire Emblem Awakening, but it is still Heather is explicitly canonically stated by the creators. The Japanese audio before it was censored by Nintendo of America is very clear, but they're still very heavily implied in the English. It is just less clear because of American censorship. And if you're mad about censorship of stuff, you should be mad about censorship of LGBT content, which Nintendo of America is constantly doing. It's not the SJW censoring things, it's the conservative family groups. So please go vote for Heather to show queer solidarity, and maybe Nintendo will be more encouraged to release more queer characters when they see that they can get us to gamble for them. Anyway, without further ado, let's begin. My first character is Kira from Tokyo Mirage Sessions, Sharp FE. Kira is a really cool character. She's the Koda Kawaii star, which is the cute and cool star, and that's the word they used even in the English version of the game, so I am just going to stick with that. Normally I prefer to just use like a American word, an English word, since I speak English and I'm talking to an English audience, but here we go. Here we don't have that option. I don't really have like a fancy way to like make the skill overlays, but Hexing Soul is a speed +3 preferred weapon, and it's basically just a speed +3 blade tome. That's the only thing it does differently. I didn't make it fancy. It just has the same BST as a blade tome, just gives speed +3. So this is me trying to make a fairly reasonable weapon as her preferred weapon, because she has two other signature skills as a dancer that I think make her pretty strong in my design. And I tried to keep her close to the game by giving her close counter advantage to kind of show that she's like this cool punk girl that's like ready to fight. So she's like, I'll fight you first and I'll hit you when I get down. But she has dancing skills, and she has the BST of the higher BST dancers, since we have some of those. So she has Reincarnation, which is her sing. It grants another action to the target ally, just like all of them, and then grants attack, speed, def, res +3 to the target and this unit after it does it. So after it sings. So basically it has a built-in version of what like Performing Arts Olivia has, and whatever Sky Dancing Olivia and Performing Arts Azura. It's just built into her sing instead. Since we have Grey Waves now, I think you have to try to think about if a dancer's actually going to stand out, like what could they do that's not copying Azura? And I thought, oh, okay, stat buff. She's cool. She's strong. Reincarnation is the name of the opening song of Tokyo Mirage Sessions that her character sings. So I figured it would be appropriate to give her that song. And her special is Overload, which is a cooldown 3. Treat foes' defense and res as if reduced by 30% in combat. Grants adjacent allies attack, speed, def, res +3. So basically it's a Moonbow that grants a buff to keep her offensive. Even though she's a dancer, I'm trying to give her offensive skills that do the buff, and I figured that's the buff that we already are used to. It's a cooldown 3, so it increases Moonbow's cooldown by 1, and has Moonbow's effect, so it lets her be aggressive while allowing her to do a buffing roll. And I think that she's a nice hybrid, and Blade Tome means that even with kind of lower base attack, lower speed than some of the top tier Blade Tome users, and less mobility because she's an infantry mage, she's still going to be doing really good. And I mean, she has a really good role as a cheerleader, but also can just kill things if she needs to. Next up we have Ixane, who has the lowest base stats of everyone I put in, because if you haven't played Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon, then or Fire Emblem, the original Fire Emblem, I think Ixane was in there too. And he might have been in New Mystery of the Fire Emblem too. I don't remember where they were, but this cool little non-binary pal. They're not canon, I'm binary, but I'm going to say they're non-binary, and you just have to deal with it. I'm going to give everyone queer head canons. I forgot to do it for Kira, but she's a lesbian. Anyway, that's what's more important to me. It's my head canons than all these skills. So I wanted to represent this character. It's a very weird gimmick. It's the only character in the Fire Emblem series, as far as I know, that's ever done this. They're a shapeshifter. They can turn into different characters in your party and like different enemies and stuff like that. I think I forget if it's your allies or if it's your enemies. I think it's your allies. But for this game, I wanted them to copy the enemies to make it more interactive. So basically, they have garbage stats. If you attack them, they will die when they're not shifted. But when they attack, they transform using the Shifter's Blade weapon. And this unit gets the stats, the skills, the weapon, everything but the assist skill, unshift. Everything else is copied by Ixane, unless they use unshift to turn back to normal. So they'll basically going to be that unit. They come with our dual infantry as just a way of letting them score an arena if you want to use them, even though they probably be more gimmicky because you're not really building with the strategy in mind. But it will let you copy the stats of strong units, so if you have less merged units, you might actually benefit from making Ixane your Surtur or something. Also, it doesn't copy HP, so Ixane's 45 HP is gonna be there, and they're at a disadvantage because their first attack does no damage, basically, or their first attack will be a copy of theirs, so it'll be a neutral attack. It's not like they're gonna have triangle advantage. I thought it would be a fun gimmick. I'm sure there might be other ways to represent it, but I'm just trying to use what is in the game right now and what you can do with it. Yeah, Ixane's a really cool character. I always wanted them in, so I'm really happy that I can speculate the way to use them. Okay, the next up is Vika, who is chronically, tragically overused. I always loved her design. She looks so cool. I'm like, I would play a game where she is the main character, and she has a pretty cool backstory. She liberates fucking Lagu's slaves with Tarbin and Motor, whatever his name is. I barely remember. I am not very memorable when it comes to men characters. I don't like the main characters in Fire Emblem games. But Ditka is just really impressive. And so far it seems like Beast units all have preferred weapons, so I'm just going to assume that all Beast units have preferred weapons, and most units here are going to have preferred weapons anyway, because I'm thinking of what's their coolest build, and the coolest units usually have preferred weapons, because it makes them have like a very unique playstyle right out of the box that you don't need to like invest extra into. It can save you a skill slot, or it can do something new. So her preferred weapon is Shrieking Claw, which copies her personal skill in Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn. That is Shriek. At the start of the turn, if adjacent to one beast, the basic Raven transform requirements, so she'll get +1 move if she transforms, blah blah blah, she gets +2 attack. And then when she attacks, she inflicts -7 speed on foes within 2 spaces of the target through their next actions after combat. So she has Moonbow, which is a pretty solid attacking skill. Reposition, which lets her like move units around. Speed Defense Bond, which kind of represents her working with her team to free the Lagoose slaves. And Wings of Mercy, which again is kind of like show her mobility and her like running around to save people. I really wanted to show that, and that speed ploy, that means the speed smoke basically built into her weapon is for her to be able to do like a supportive role, and also like if she gets danced after that, she can go in and definitely double, because I gave her very high base speed of 41, so that she can really just fight people. And it also lets her work with the current Raven Lagoose, the king, since he gets an advantage on having lower speed. That speed -7 is going to be massive for the calculation of his attack. If there was units that were around his speed now, they probably are slower. But it wasn't really me thinking just about him. I was thinking generally about the benefit of Vika working with any kind of team of beast units or not beast units. But yeah, I think that -7 speed on units is pretty strong, but not like overpowered in your wildest dreams kind of moves. Next up, we got Sue, and Sue is a archer cavalier, so she would be our 3rd archer cavalier if she came in like immediately. Of me recording this, it may not even be true once this is up, because it might take me a while to edit this, and we got the Mythic Hero banner coming soon and other stuff. Anyway, Sue is this really cool archer girl from Fire Emblem Binding Blade. She's the daughter of Wrath, but like that is kind of irrelevant because that came out first. So being the daughter of Wrath, what does that mean? She's actually the progenitor to Wrath. She is what Wrath is built on. Wrath isn't built on her. She isn't built on Wrath. I gave her the Fire Sweep bow. So she has like a less original moveset. I wanted just to kind of go like an in the box, really strong, and like really kind of like annoying moveset for her to kind of show that she's like slick and fast and can get out of the way of the enemies. I'm sure she would be a nightmare to fight, but I gave her, and I give a lot of these units kind of like low defenses. She has like 18 defense, 18 res. She will die. You hit her and she is going to die. But she can kill basically anyone she shoots too. And she's very slippery. I give her Escape Shot, which is a personal skill for her, which would basically it lets her have hit and run, but as an archer. When this unit attacks, it moves back 1 space if possible. And she has a glare, which she'd probably have a different name for it since that's an assault. Nihilus preferred weapon. For exclusive skill. So, but glare basically just lets, and I put this in a couple of other people, so you'll get to see it. So I might as well be familiar with it. Basically, after you attack, it puts out a status effect where it limits their movement to 1. So basically, she'll be able to shoot from 2 range, limit their movement to 1, and move back. So she will not be able to be hit on counter attack. If she kills her unit, then the other units are not going to be able to hit her. And even if she doesn't kill her target, it'll inflict the status, like with like a sticky arrow or whatever, and she'll then be able to run off. So if you want to like kind of just troll in-game content, she'll be able to do a lot of that. She'll be able to just handle the in-game content like it's nothing. Where I don't know. I don't know if she'll be like the best AI controlled unit, and I'm sure there's plenty of ways to get around it. But maybe that's a little too overpowered. I don't know. I wasn't designing them with the term of balance. That's Intelligence Systems' job. I'm just making fake units for fun. Okay, and next up is Renea from Fire Emblem Fates. I'm not the biggest fan of Fire Emblem Fates, but I do like a lot of the characters, and you'll see that I have some more on the list. But Renea is very cool, and in the gay hack, I definitely am pretty sure I'm going to romance her. I'm currently playing through it right now. I gave her Fury, so her base stat total is with Fury included, and with her preferred weapon, Morbid Bow, it gives attack +3. Calculated in there too, so it's not like I gave her ridiculous base stats. It's actually just that she has several stat increasing and things on her. She has low defense, low res, high attack, high speed, like she does in the games. And she has a I tried to build it on her Morbid Fascination personal skill from Fates. So her Morbid Bow lets her recover HP after combat, 6 HP. That's it. So she's not really tanky, but basically I let her heal her Fury damage by doing that. And I think that's really cool, and it's a nice idea. And it also is not a very broken bow, so I don't think people would even be like, oh, they probably just want to switch it for Fire Sweep and call it a day. But I don't like to do that kind of stuff that much. Yeah, but I'm really a huge fan. I think she's really cool. She MILF. I definitely love a nice mature woman, and she has scars, which is really unique for designs. I really think she'd be a really great addition, and I'm really sad that Classed Up Hinoka got in over Renea. Even though I like Classed Up Hinoka, and I think Classed Up variants are cool, it's just that it's a shame that there was a character that really fit that role, who's like the flagship of Kimchi Knights, and didn't get in before a Classed Up Hinoka. Okay, next up is Enna, who is this really dope dragon girl, and I do think that I have an affinity for characters with darker skin as a Latinx woman myself. So when I'm seeing these characters with darker skin, I always felt like kinship with them because they weren't like as pale as the other characters. She is a dragon tactician from Fire Emblem Path of Radiant, and in Radiant Dawn she plays a lesser role, but she is still in the game. She's a potential party member. Spoilers. And I'll try not to spoil things in the future, just give you kind of a background on what they're about. But anyway, she has a preferred weapon and a preferred special. She comes with Warded Breath, which is to take in. I made her very bulky. I like the idea of her just being able to tank things. She's an armored dragon. I tried to keep her at the base stat of Tiki, who's the other. Halloween Myrrh, who's the other armored red dragon, but should be in the permanent summoning pool. And Warning Breath lets her take in the special hits and get her cooldown down. Renewal lets her heal herself passively, and it's also her skill inside Path of Radiance. And Go Dragons lets her buff dragon allies if she's in a Dragon Emblem team, which you can definitely do an armored Dragon Emblem team now. Mixing up, armor marches with, buffing dragon skills. Her signature weapons are Blood Tide, which this deals damage of the lesser defense and res, like all of the other ones. And after this unit deals damage, increase attack and death +3 of all adjacent allies until their next turn. Cooldown 2, remove her special boon, remove all statuses and reverse all debuffs of adjacent allies and self when this skill triggers. So she has a 2 cooldown skill that does debuff and reverse buff. So any debuff you got gets reversed, and it lets you basically use the visual buffs to your advantage if you want, if you're going to get like panic plater stuff, but also if there's just normal debuffs happening, like chill skills and stuff like that, those will get reversed, and instead you'll actually just get a big buff to your stat if whenever she attacks. So I wanted to kind of like have these like supporty kind of skills while her being like obviously a huge threat. She's more like a wall that does buffing things because she's a tactician and she was like holding a castle in her game. So I really wanted to like the idea of like her commanding her units, not like needing to be in the front line and killing everyone. Next up is Cynthia from Fire Emblem Awakening, the Skybound hero. Dab. I really like the idea of I really like fun, energetic characters, and Cynthia's definitely that. I love characters who want to be heroic, and that's why I also like Owain. And I don't generally like a lot of male characters, so that's saying something. But yeah, Cynthia is really cute, and Zumi is one of my favorite like main characters, like not kid generation from Awakening. So I definitely want her daughter in. For her base stats, I basically just copied Zumia's stats, except I gave I think I gave Cynthia like lower defense and more attack, and just a little bit more stats because she's a trainee unit, but not too much because Sumia seemed to be a trainee unit, aka a unit that has higher BST than the normal BST that we think of for a character in that class. It doesn't actually mean anything. Fire Emblem heroes can just increase everyone's BSTs if they want, and BSTs have slowly increased generally anyway. She has the Heroes Lance, which is her preferred weapon. When two or more enemies are within 2 spaces of Cynthia, the unit makes a guaranteed follow-up. If this unit is attacked by sword, axe, lance, special cooldown -1. So basically she has a built-in special cooldown, and she has a guaranteed follow-up if there's multiple enemies within her like 2-space range. So it kind of works like Ephraim's weapon, but I gave it, you know, I may give it an easier condition, but I think lower might, and I also gave it a special cooldown ability. And she doesn't obviously come with like a blessing or buffs or anything like that, like Legendary Embelm does. I kind of give her that, like, I didn't want her to have a solo skill because I feel like she's a character who wants to be with her friends. But I wanted a skill that was like, she likes to be at odds. In addition, I gave her Gale Force, you know, to represent her mom, Cordelia. Yeah, her other mom, they gay, move on. Reposition, to like move the unit, and because she has a attack speed link and attack def bond to show like, you know, that when she's with her friend she's stronger. Next up is Tanith. So Tanith is a really cool character. One of my favorite units in Path of Radiance. She's not as good in Radiant Dawn. I don't really use her as much. She comes with the Sonic Sword, usually in her base kit, so I made that her preferred weapon. It grants her speed +3, and then it calculates just the lower of def and res, and it hits that to simulate that it's a magic weapon. She's a, you know, it looks like, you know, she's a fairly balanced out unit. I didn't give her like any stat that's super ridiculous to make up for the fact that I gave her a pretty strong assist skill. Her assist skill is called Call Flyers. All ally, or I think two flyer allies may be moved to an adjacent space to the user if valid. So basically, it copies her reinforcement ability from Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, where she would summon 2 random generic NPCs and that are flyers. But here she reinforces, she just brings your flyer allies to you, which gives them basically a warp status, moves them towards you, and lets them move if they haven't moved already, which I think is really, really strong mobility. But it's exclusive to her, and it's not like summoning NPCs. And then I gave her joint Hone Flyers, which is just to power creep a little bit. Since we have Hone Flyers, I like the idea of these joint skills. I wish that like the characters kind of got free upgrades of them, because I feel like getting the buff that you're giving is so valuable for a lot of units, and a lot of units would really benefit if they could actually get their buffs. Tanith is so cool. I really love her, and definitely if you haven't played Path of Radiance, or you haven't used her when you played Path of Radiance, because I didn't in my initial playthroughs. It was only my recent playthrough that I did for my podcast Girlfriend Quest, which you can go listen to. Link in the description. That I really started using her. So next up is Lethe, and she is a really cool cat Lagoose from Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn. You're going to see a lot of Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn characters here. They're my favorite. You're not going to see any Jundal units, none of the SNES games. I don't particularly care for them. So anyway, I mean, there's probably some cool characters I haven't got far enough to care about characters. But yeah, anyway, Lethe is really cool. She's a cat Lagoose. I decided to make her green, just for diversity's sake. It seems like the race of the Lagoose doesn't really matter. Color is just based on whatever they decide the color is. So I gave her green so that she isn't like overlapping with Nyla for the same archetype. She has the same transformation abilities, but her cat claws give her a solo skill. She gets attack speed solo 2, which increases her attack when she's not adjacent to any allies by 4 attack and 4 speed. That's also why I gave her Goad Beast to like represent that she doesn't want to be right next to them, but within 2 spaces. She'll still be able to benefit and buff her team because she's a commander, but she is like very independent and like really just like wants to get there. And her arc of learning to kind of trust Bjorks, but like knowing that like historically and like right now there's still a lot of bigotry there, feels very relatable as a trans woman and as a woman of color and as a queer woman. All these intersections, I've learned through experience that like you can trust people that aren't like you, but that you should be cautious because you don't get to choose to live in an ideal society where people didn't learn the bullshit that was programmed into them. We live in a world where they did learn that, so we need to have your expectations settled. I gave her Fury because she's an angry girl, and that also reflects in her stats, so she has the Fury buff. But when her attack speed solo pops, like she's going to be one of the fastest units in the game and have very high attacks. She's going to be a very big threat, but I also gave her a defensive skill to represent her personal item in Path of Radiance, the Bjork Guard. Eventually other characters can get it, but basically when she's attacked by a human character, by a Bjork character, she gets increased defense and res +3, axe, sword, bow, and lance in this case. No, I decided not to give her a debuff on magic because fire tomes could be advantageous and have advantage on cat Lagooses. So to kind of represent that, I just didn't give her the defense on that. So instead, she just gets that for just the basic like human U weapons, and she gets the defense and res +3, and she gets her special cooldown lowered by 2 when she gets hit. So basically, she'll instantly be able to proc Moonbow if she just used it, if she gets hit once. But that calculates after the combat, so it's not like it's going to instantly proc in battle if you attack her. Or maybe it wouldn't. Maybe it would be beneficial for it to pop off in battle, and it just makes her like this ridiculous threat if you don't one-shot her. But regardless, I really like that about her, and I would definitely want to do more. I want to see like her get into the game, and I think she will. I think basically all Beast Lagoos will get into the game because there's not that many of them in the series, and the Beast units are pretty cool. Cool set of characters. Okay, next up is Rinka from Fire Emblem Fates. I love her design. It's a shame that she's not that great of a unit in the game, but she is really cool. I gave her Blue Flame to represent that she's part of the fire trade and give her like an actual fiery special. I gave her Death Blow 4 because her class promote has Death Blow, so I figured as a like creator of Death Blow in a sense for her game, she deserves to have the best version of Death Blow. Chill Res, which isn't really beneficial for her, it's really a support skill. because she has seal res in her game, and I always thought that was weird, but yeah, I'm just giving her something that represents that. Infantry pulse because she's a chief, a commanding character. So I figured like here's a skill that will let her support other infantry units. Like basically other units of her tribe would have benefited from that because they're probably all infantry units. And her preferred weapon, Fiery Axe, which has Desperation 3 built into it. That's it. It's just high BST, Desperation 3. Okay. And I am going to take a second. Alright, next up is Mozu, who is a villager character from Fire Emblem Fates. And I really, really like her. I didn't really give her any special moves or anything. I give her, basically she would have the not seasonal locked version of Its Curtains. I just put Its Curtains there because it was easier. But, I mean, it could even be Its Curtains because, I mean, she's a villager, she could use a joke weapon. But, regardless, it lowers down her special cooldown by 2 at the first turn, and then now again, just because it basically comes with like a silver lance. I gave her Aether because I really often reclass her to a Great Lord when I play, because there's not like a lot of units that I'm like, oh yeah, I definitely want to turn them into a swordy unit, and especially in Birthright, I was like, okay, yeah, there's not really a lot of people who in their base kit are using swords. Other than like my unit, but I didn't feel like making myself a Great Lord, so I decided to make her one. So I give her Aether and give her a Rally Attack Speed Plus because she's like, you know, a cheerful, happy girl, and because she like suffered through like a lot of trauma and stuff, I give her like Brazen Attack Def 3 because she like can manage to do it. And Desperation 3, and she has higher base stats than normal infantry lancer because she's a villager, like how Donald does, and stuff like that. Moving on, we have Hungry Traveler, Ileana. Ileana is one of my favorite characters from Fire Emblem, and she was actually one half of my first gay ship that I remember having. I did ship Florina and Lynn, but like, this is like, I was an adult, I mean, not an adult, but I was a teenager in high school who was still not out and just learning to accept gay people, being raised Catholic. But, like, I don't know, this couple, like, really stood out to me. And I had played the game before, being in high school, I think. Dates are hard to remember. But anyway, I remember I drew in my freshman year class an art of Mia and Ileana. I had an art class, and I did a thing with them like hugging each other, and I was like, yes, I'm into it. I give her a preferred weapon, the Rex Ball, plus 3 speed, effective against dragons, negates abilities that allow counter at range when attacking foe with a breath weapon. So I basically just made her a very strong dragon counter to represent the Rex Ball's ability against dragons and sacred stones, and this gives her, you know, a good solid place along with the other green tome units. It actually might be better to make her like blue or red, just so that she's different than Julia and Daedra, but I just thought of that right now while making this video. I'm just being honest. You know, drawback Moonbow basics to it. Attack Resolink because she travels with a band of merchants, and so I think she's very tied into her group and them helping her and her helping the merchants, and you know, eventually the Grail's mercenaries and a bunch of other armies. She kind of just jumps around, which is really fun. I'm really glad that she got to travel like that. And I gave her Shade ability, and some people say that you couldn't make this ability in Fire Emblem Heroes, but I say why not? Literally every enemy is AI based, so enemy units cannot target this unit if another unit is within its attacking range. So basically, this is just an AI based attack. It just changes the way that the AI decides to attack. If it has Shade, then they calculate it as being advantageous against them. If there's another unit in the row, it calculates and decides to attack the other unit, which would let her do a lot of cool positioning stuff that other units can't do. And even Arena is calculated through AI. There's no live PvP, so there's no reason we can't have a skill like Shade in the game that's all about AI manipulation, and honestly, I'd like to see more of it. I think that would be really interesting. And next up is Idun, who is spoilers. and I won't talk too much about them, but they are a dragon character from Fire Emblem Binding Blade. They have, I gave them Darkness Breath, not Dark Breath, because Dark Breath's already in the game. She's a colorless armor dragon. I thought that would be interesting, and I think that's really fitting for a final boss type character. I wanted to make her pretty strong, because we get a lot of Grand Hero battle people who aren't not strong, but like I wanted this one to feel like this is a final boss in a Fire Emblem game. She's like the final boss, I think. Regardless, I gave her Miracle to represent like that she's a boss, that she's hard to kill, that like only certain weapons can kill her, kind of stuff. I gave her Attack Defense Solo because, you know, she's a final boss type character, and I feel like being alone, brooding, really fits. Vengeful Fighter, to represent like revenge and anger, and even Attack Wave for also that like very just super aggressive kit that, within the base stats of the legendary dragons that we already have and the Halloween dragons, armor dragons that we have, but this time with no triangle advantage, so very, very powerful, very, very strong unit that you do not want to mess with to really equal a boss fight. Now maybe this would be too strong, and this definitely would be too strong to give like in a Grand Hero battle, but who knows, with power creep by the end of this year it could even not be that good. Next up is Jill, who is, oh my gosh, I love her so much. Her like arc as like racist who was, basically brainwashed by her nation, and like very, very quickly learning like, hey, something is wrong with this. Like when she gets any kind of opportunity to interact with these people outside of the social, in any kind of social manner, she already starts to learn, no, I'm wrong. Like even if I don't want to be wrong, because I don't want to say that my culture, my dad, everyone has lied to me. But I think that's a really cool character. I gave her the little goose guard that she had at the beginning of Path of Radiance, even though I would probably want like her Radiant Dawn form. I mean, I would be cool with getting this and then getting an upgraded version at some other day. I do think that this wasn't her greatest possible moveset. I did try to keep her kind of balanced, but I give her Sturdy Impact to show like that like defensive, bulky Dragon Lord kind of moveset where they're really strong. But Jill's always been actually one of the fastest Dragon Lord type characters, so I did give her a pretty good amount of speed, and basically to make up for having pretty good defense, but not like broken defense. She has Sturdy Impact, so when she's attacking, she has broken defense. I gave her Harsh Command just to kind of fit that harsh personality. And the Stout Tomahawk, I gave it the same It's Curtains ability at the start of the turn. It grants special cooldown -2, which is great for just like popping off that Dragon Fang once. So on smaller maps and arenas and stuff like that, it'll be really good. And on maps that have a lot of units, it may not be as good of a weapon, which I think maybe as a preferred weapon I should give it like Stat Boost or something. But that's more, hindsight is 50-50. I thought like, oh, that seemed kind of broken on its own. But I guess it's an inheritable weapon. It can get like pluses and stuff. I didn't think about it. So you can add +3 to one of her stats or something from the weapon and maybe give it a second cooldown based ability. I could just say it did because you guys aren't seeing the skills. That it gives special cooldown -2 when she's attacked by something. But anyway, she has a Goose Guard. When attacked by Beast or Dragon unit, it increases its res and defense by 3 and lowers special cooldown by 2. So she does have built-in special cooldown. So I kind of just had her focused on proccing like high stat ones, and I thought that was already like broken enough. So maybe her weapon being a little bit weak kind of balances it. But I guess people would just inherit off of it thinking about it. So it needs some kind of boost. Anyway, next up is Lucia. Oof, the gay feels I have for Lucia. I love long hair, but like her getting her hair cut off and again like that like extra little bit of butchness added in was like, oof. Hello, Butch Queen. We stand a Butch in this house. And I gave her basically an equivalent stat set to what she is, which she's fast and strong, but she also has high res. So instead of giving her high defenses or giving her just like low defenses in general, I give her high res. I give her distant counter because in Radiant Dawn, one of her kit weapons is a ranged sword. I gave her Astra because that's the Swordmaster class. I could give her like Ragnall Astra or something. the other skill, but I was like, I remember getting her two locked in exclusive skills, so maybe that'd be a little too good. So I give her the parity blade, res +3 in combat with another unit. Ignore all bonuses the opponent has. So basically, parity in Fire Emblem Rising Dawn negates all field bonuses. So I thought, like, okay, that would be an interesting way of representing that. Her sword just makes it where you're fighting with your base stats. You don't get no buffs when you fight her. And it also like made that res stat more impressive, which lets her distinct counter better. So like no one is messing with her. She is having a real on the ground battle with you. And Loyal Guardian C for the C slot is a unit may move to any adjacent tile of it, any ally, flying ally within 3 spaces. So like basically it's to represent her lady love Alencia and like her ability to come to her side and be at her aid, and that she never stops like to get away from her. So like it's a pretty good teleporting skill that represents her cool girl. Play Radiant Dawn about the Radiance and ship them, and don't do any other ships with them except Alencia is polyamorous, so you can do it with like Leona or something. Anyway, next up is Vaidya, who is a character that's always stood out to me. She's a boss character in Fire Emblem Blazing Sword, aka Fire Emblem GBA. And you can recruit her, but only later in the game. You gotta fight her already in advance, and she's still a threat even when you fight her in another map, but like she will probably kill one of your units. And I really wanted to represent her like fearsome presence, so I give her a very strong weapon. I give her gun gear, which is like the legendary lance in a lot of games, and gun gear is kind of known in mythology for being like a lance that can get thrown and stuff, so I give it distant counter and attack +3. So it is a little bit stronger than distant counter, but I think now that we have legendary Hector with or brave Hector with a distant counter that's power creeped, it's okay to have like a little bit of a better distant counter on particular units, and this is locked to her, so it's not like it's going to go to anyone else. She gets vengeance to kind of represent that like being a bad guy, fury to represent that like kind of anger and stuff. I love her design. She has like a scar and stuff. Anyway, she has glare to show that like intimidation. So I really like this character. I love her design, and I want to see her in the game because she is just not like a lot of other Fire Emblem characters. You don't really see like a butch character like this, and you definitely don't see like women with scars that often. Like her and Renea are the only two I can think of that have like visible face scars in their concept art. Next up is Forest, trans icon. We stand a trans lesbian in this house. She is a gay trans woman. You can't argue that. I feel like it's fairly clear. She says, I'm a boy, but like I said I was a boy when I was her age. So I said I was a boy until like, I don't know, I was like 22 or something. Then I started I was non-binary, and then I said I was a trans woman later. Non-binary people are valid, by the way. I just changed my identity. That anyone has the right to change their mind about how they identify. Yes, but so she's a trans lady, trans fashionista, and she's a trans lesbian. It's very clear in the text, especially in the English version, which people complain about, but in the Japanese version it's still fairly clear. And given the regressive nature of Japan towards trans people, the forced sterilization and stuff like that, I think that you can't expect that they would do representation in a way that wasn't a little bit negating of their identity, because it's not like they got a trans writer specifically to write Forest or a drag queen or something, right? No, there's probably just the same guy who's writing every other path. So anyway, Forest, I gave her Bifrost, which is the A rank staff in Fire Emblem Fates, which in the game revives a unit once. But I wanted to make it similar but within balance. So it's a 4 cooldown special, and it grants a miracle status as a status effect to a unit when healed. So it lasts for 1 turn. 1 round until the enemy turn is done. They have Miracle, that unit, so it makes it harder for them to kill. It's cooldown 4, which is 1 less than normal Miracle, but granted that like Forest can't use special cooldown being a horse unit. It's not like she is going to be like popping off Bifrosts often. And she's not an offensive unit. She will be able to attack with Dazzling Staff, and you could try to like pivot her and charge it and do like a trolley kind of runaway strategy, but most maps won't allow for it, again because they're horse units. It makes it fairly hard to like kind of traverse in that way. I give her Fierce Counter, which is her signature skill. In that game, it gave 2 damage when men attack her, aka lesbian, doesn't want men, and as a trans woman, doesn't like knows that men are her most present danger because men attack trans women at unproportionate rates. Anyway, grants +2 attack when attacked. If foe initiates attack, foe within 2 spaces of target takes 3 damage after combat. So basically she gets like a pseudo fierce stance and also a like savage blow type effect after to really like put home like the like passive damage that would counter. And since she is a freaking magical unit and really low defense, it's not going to be like something that's going to really frequently happen unless people are attacking her on the magic end. So, you know, it makes her a very good magic check, but not a very great defensive check still, like for infantry units. Next up is Echidna, who, oof, she is my favorite Binding Blade character. I instantly fell in love with her the second she showed up on a map. I was like, I'm going to recruit her, and I'm going to use her. I don't care that she's a pre-promote, because usually I don't like to use pre-promotes that much. I use them more now that I do all-girl runs, so now, like, you have to use the pre-promotes to keep that army going. I wanted to very much stick to her theme of like being a hero. Look how gay she looks. She is such a lesbian. I love for her to get in. She was who I voted in Choose Your Legend too. I voted for her and Nyla like interchangeably. I did the 2 of them. But now it's a new day, so I'm not voting for her because she's not a canon lesbian. But I do think that she has very good lesbian energy and should be a canon lesbian. And if I was doing one of those gay hack things for Binding Blade, I would definitely rewrite the script to further her queerness. I give her Fire Sweep Axe, which we don't have in the game yet, so I thought that would be like a cool way to make her like stand out when she comes out, and obviously that might mean people will, you know, fodder her off eventually, but I think that I give her a really good base kit to go along with it. She has Blue Flame to, you know, represent like kind of like she has that blue hair, and she's like a heroic character who's like running in there and attacking people, and Death Blow 4 to really show that aggressiveness. She's an Axe Infantry, which we don't have a ton of actually, and I made her different because most Axe units are bulky, so I basically put all those extra stats that Axe units get typically and just put it into attack and speed. Made her much weaker on the res side, and really not able to take a res hit. And Infantry Flash, which is really cool skill that like will help units with speed. And I think it's really interesting, and I definitely like to see that kind of skill on more units. I like to see more infantry buffing skills, since I really don't use the infantry a lot because they don't get all the cool stuff that flyers and horses and armors get. Okay, next up is Stella, who is a X-gender character, a non-binary character that you're referred to with they, them pronouns inside the game that is actually canon. This isn't even a headcanon. Unfortunately, they're a villain and they're a morph and they don't get much of a personality and stuff, but I still really love them. They always really stood out to me. I always really loved them and I wanted to kind of look like them because, you know, it wasn't a taboo because they weren't a girl. Now, of course, I'm much more femme than this andro look, but I really like them. So I want to copy the Fimberter tome, basically it's a freezing tome, and so instead of it like causing like a gravity status like ice might do, I decided to give it like a Savage Strike skill, so it does passive damage to units after it lays its attack, to kind of show like that she's a boss character. And like also they had bolting, I think, when they were fighting against you. And they definitely could use bolting. They were a sage, so even if they didn't, like, kind of represent that, like, being able to attack from a distance further away than like normally allowed. And attacker is solo because they always worked on their own, and chill res to really make them like, okay, if you're weak, you're gonna get hurt. And I really like them, and I would really, really love to see them as like a Grand Hero battle unit added into the game, or just added into the game. I'll definitely summon for any of the 20 characters here. Those are probably 20 of the few characters that I would, for sure, if I had, even if I didn't have orbs, like I'd grind the hell out to get them. And last but not least, the piece de resistance, the girl you should go vote for and choose your Legends 3. Heather, Lady Lover, canon lesbian in the house. You hear the Base Lord, which is the SS rank dagger in the Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn game that she's from. I gave it with attack +3, which is why her attack's so high. It's not that her attack stat's higher. Like, her attack stat's actually lower than Soth's Base Lord moveset higher. And that was by design because she had lower attack than Soth in the games, but Soth picked a different sword. His is more utility, and I want this one to be more offensive. So what it does is it gives unit pass. Like, it can move past enemy units so long as it's within her normal moving space, and she can also move past forest tiles. I wanted to kind of represent like the quick and slick nature of the unit, and giving her movement past forest tiles as well like kind of helps pass be decent as a skill. And in addition, you know, it's a dagger, so it gives the 7 debuffs, and it has attack +3, so like even, you know, on regular plays, it's a fairly strong dagger for a dagger unit. I gave her close counter despite not having the best defenses because I wanted to represent that like she could fight at close range, and that, like, that's something that she does a lot. At least in my playthrough, I was always in their face, always ready to fight. She was like a dodge tank. And I gave her Charming Thief as her exclusive still, which gains the highest buff on an enemy unit. If there's a tie, Heather gains all buffs that are tied. So basically, she gets to steal their buff. She doesn't actually steal it. She just gets a copy of it, but I feel like functionally that works. Maybe it would be cool if it stole it. Basically, so if they have +30, +30, +30, +3, she would gain all +3 buffs. And if they had +7, +0, +2, +3, then she would just gain the +7 stat buff. So it kind of makes her have this unique role of like being an anti-buffer unit, and it gives her C slot something that's different. And as an infantry unit, your C slot isn't as important, just because like you're not running like goads and hones and stuff like that as much. You might want to do those things, but like you can build a team definitely that doesn't need as much of that. You can just be pulling an infantry pulse and stuff like that. I give her Glimmer because I feel like it's an equivalent to like lethality and stuff, even though it may not be her best option. And I give her Swap to like represent that stealing, like, oh, I'm going to move you over here and go over there, kind of moveset that you might get with a thief. But she probably would be better suited with like a reposition, since she can move past a forest tile or move into a forest tile on that like first turn, then reposition a unit over the forest tile. But I figured Swap was just a nice like reference, and reposition isn't that rare. So regardless, I really love these 20 characters. I hope you liked this video. I know it's pretty long, but if you enjoyed it, you can go to my Patreon in the description, patreon.com/AlexisSarah. I also have a bunch of other things linked below. So if you like any of this, I'll also be doing a post that has these like up as a reference, or this post on my Patreon will have the images so that you can download them. I'll do something like that so that it's just a little bit more accessible for everyone. My Patreon also includes articles I write, and links to comics I make, and all sorts of other really cool stuff. And I'm always working on new projects, starting Twitch streaming, and I have a Discord server. I have lots of stuff. So if you enjoy cool trans content, awesome. You can leave a comment if you want. If it's shitty, I'll block you. Even if it's not that shitty, I might delete it. Just like, I don't really want drama. And this is for fun. And I want fun responses. And I can do whatever I want. I'm the authoritarian state here. you know, thank you so much for listening, though, seriously. And it means a lot that you would go through the end of this video. Bye-bye. Have a lovely day. Love you all. Bye-bye.